Okay, so when we're going to survey otters, non-intrusively and within the guidelines of legislation, what are we looking for? Well, one of the key things we're looking for is otter spraint. So this is basically otter poo. Ooh. Now, otter spraint is a very important communication tool that otters use to send messages to each other. So what they might do is they'll deposit a bit of spraint, and that spraint might say, hey guys, have you seen the new dog otter in the territory? Or I'm a female, I'm ready to breed. Or I'm an otter passing through your territory. Is there anyone around? It's thought that the otter spraint contains around 120 different messages that otters will use to communicate with each other. So this is really good for us to go and try and survey, because otters want their spraint to be found by other otters, which means they're going to try and put it in key locations. So the otters might think, okay, where on this river, if another otter comes down, is he more likely to pick up my spraint? So he's going to look for key features, boulders in the river, bends of the river, where rivers join and meet, fallen trees, old logs, old branches, virtually anything that has a significance when you look at a watercourse or a river, and where the otter might think, that's where I want to put it. So when we're surveying, this is where we're going to go and have a look. So we're going to look at the key features of the river, and we're going to think, okay, if I'm an otter, where would I want to leave that message? And we'll go and start surveying and look for these spraints. Now, spraints can vary. They can vary from a single droplet of dark liquid all the way to a big piece of matter. Now, the larger pieces of otter spraint often contain items of food that they've eaten. So when you look at them, you'll find fish scales in there, fish bones. You might even find bits of crayfish or bits of birds' bones. Whatever they've been eating quite often will end up in the spraint. Now you might think, I don't want to survey for otter poo. Well, otter poo is actually unlike the other poo of the mustelids in the family that they live in, because otter poo is actually quite sweet. Some people say it's similar to chamomile tea, and it's got a light pungent, whereas if you're smelling one of the other mustelids, which could be badger or polecat, stoats or weasel, it's going to make you go, "Wah!" Otters won't. Okay, so now we have found our spraint. It's often quite good just to take a little measurement and perhaps a photograph. What's also quite key with this, I use this Garmin, and this gives me an exact GPS of this record of otter spraint. So when I upload the records to National Resource Wales and to environmental record centres, then we've got an exact location. But this isn't the only sign that otters leave for us to be able to survey them. Footprints. Otters will often leave footprints where they've been, some of these telltale marks and trails, but footprints can be quite difficult to get because when it's very dry in summer, the ground isn't soft enough quite often to be able to pick them up. And when it's very wet, then quite often the footprints are washed away. So it can be quite tricky finding them. So how do we know that we found an otter footprint? Well, otters, like all the rest of the mustelids, have got 5 toes. If you see a dog footprint, it's actually only got 4 toes and a big central pad and looks completely different. So we're looking for something that's got 5 toes. Now, the tricky bit is otters' 5th toe, if you like their little finger, is very small and slightly raised. So you can't always see the 5 toes. Now I have an example of otter footprints here. As you can see, 5 toes. So these are actually the wrong way round because that's the bottom foot at the top. But you can see the bottom foot is actually slightly more elongated than the front foot. You can just make out the little toe there, the 5th toe. So this is actually quite a good guide if you're looking for otter footprints, that you can actually place it down next to the footprint and say, I think that's a footprint. So just here, you need a bit of a keen eye. We have our otter footprint. So let's just put that down so you get an idea. Now you can see the toes, and we can count 5 toes there. You can see the pad. So an otter has walked up here, up on the bank, sprinted, and then we think he's gone round onto the other bank and dried himself off. So what's quite good to do is actually give us an idea and measure the footprint. So basically a female's footprint will be around 45 to 50 millimeters, and a dog otter will be around 60 millimeters, but this can obviously vary because you can have cubs and you can have juveniles with bigger and smaller feet. So other signs to look for, one of them is a special jelly similar to spraints that otters leave. Now nobody's really quite sure what the purpose of this jelly is, but it's thought that it's a part of the protective lining of the stomach to help the otters when eating fish bones and fish scales. But this is also something else to look out for. Now jelly can be clear, it can be very dark, and it can be small amounts or it can be slightly larger amounts. Next, we have to look out for slides. So otters like to have a quick escape route into the watercourse, and this is often called a slide because they use the same one. So over a period of time you'll have a slide going down a mud bank into the watercourse, and this is also something to look for, and maybe go and look for some of those elusive footprints. What else are we looking for when we're surveying otters? Food remains. So otters quite often use the same area to land food, land their prey, dispatch it, and actually eat it. So you might find fish bones, fish scales, you might find feathers, but what also happens here is that area where they've been feeding, often the grass becomes much greener. This is because the nutrients would have gone down into the earth, fish remains, etc., making it much more fertile. So that's another point to be able to look for. When we're out looking, these greener grass tussocks, which is where an otter will have been feeding or an otter might have been sprinting, actually give you a good indication from a distance to go and investigate it. Quite often when I'm out walking next to a river, I see this greener clump of grass next to the watercourse, and I'll think that's worth going to check out. And more often than not, when we go and check it out, there is spraint on it or there is some food remains.